What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast where every single week I interview top entrepreneurs, top real estate professionals, and straight up top badasses. They're out there truly dominating their space. So people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves, for their families, as well as have a big impact on others. And today, you guys got another special rock star guest on the show. You guys are our guest today is a real estate investor, educator, husband, and father. Originally an immigrant of Germany, where he and his wife came to the United States with only 2 suitcases and a lot of student debt, and quickly found their niche in flipping land parcels, which they went from 0 to $1 million in a short time frame, about 18 months. If you fast forward today, they flipped over 4,000 land parcels, figured out how to make passive income with flipping land and with land, which I'm really excited to learn about, as well as they own a large portfolio of rental properties, commercial properties, and apartment buildings as well. He's also a best-selling author, podcast host, and just a dude that's absolutely crushing it. So really stoked and honored to have Jack Bosch on the show, my friend.
How are you doing? I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much for having me, Josh.
Yeah, no, doing great, man. No, that's an absolute honor. And you know, our listeners are primarily real estate agents, and they're representing a lot of investors and a lot of investors themselves. And you've got, you know, definitely a unique niche, you know, right, that is really unheard of out in this space. So I'm really excited to dive into that and learn about that. But before we get into all the cool stuff that you're doing today, I'm really intrigued in your journey, you know, of coming over here, taking that gamble, taking that risk, and, you know, traveling all that way with 2 suitcases, plus all that debt, and you know, how all this started. So if we run the clocks, man, you know, what led you to leaving Germany in the first place? And then once you got here, I'm really intrigued to hear about how you landed on this niche.
Right. Be happy to share that. So I actually left Germany just for 10 months. Well, that was the plan. So now I'm here 22 years already. So I was finishing my college degree in Germany, and I wanted to get into, I studied business, and I wanted to get into business, I don't know, some job consulting or something like that. And I had multiple offers already, job offers and so on. But I had about 1 year to go in college, and I was like, okay, so if I want to do a career in business in a corporate world and like big corporations and stuff like that, then I need to improve my English. I saw the writing on the wall back in 1997 that in order to do a career, the world was getting more and more international. You needed to speak good English. My English back then was really bad. So I was understanding everything, but speaking wasn't really my strength. So I very basically, I looked around and I saw that my college back in Germany had an exchange program with an American university where I could go for 1 year, get an American MBA, as well as get credit for the classes that I still had missing in Germany. So, and learn English. So it's like three kind of goals accomplished in 1 year. It's like, hey, that's a no-brainer. I don't extend my college time. The same year I would spend in Germany, now I spend in the US. I get credit on both sides. I improve my English. I get an extra degree. Let's do this. So I had never been in the US. I basically applied for it. I had barely enough money to pay for 1/2 of a year. I figured somehow I'll finance the other year. I'll borrow money or something like that. I jumped on a plane. I went over there. I got accepted. I wasn't even it was just a regular university, nothing to write home about. I came over here. And then I fell in love with the U.S. and I fell in love with the people. And also what was extremely helpful was that 3 weeks into it, I met this young lady who is now my wife of 18 years. And she is an immigrant too, but not from Germany. She's actually from Honduras, Central America. So we both met there. We fell in love with each other. We fell in love with the country. And we're like, you know what? We love it here. Why don't we try to stay here? And so we got jobs, and from the jobs came the process of not liking the jobs. And after not liking the jobs came the process of what do we do now? And then we stumbled into real estate and found land, and then things took off like crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So you finished out the year of college here, jumped into what the corporate world kind of a thing. And what was it about? Because you have all this time now invested in these, you know, getting this degree and, you know, coming to the U.S. And a lot of people just have the mindset of, well, work is work. It's not supposed to be enjoyed. This is just what it takes. And you just got to suck it up. And you know, like, what was it that, I guess, gave you the courage, if you will, to not choose that path and look for something different after all that time, energy, and money invested into it?
The simplest answer is pain. Pain. So I went to business school. I mean, I went to school and at the university, and I was majored in business. And I applied to like something like 30 different jobs here in the US. The only job I was able to get was a job with a IT company as a software consultant, because back in Germany as a college worker, because again, I had my parents, my dad's a high school teacher, my mom's a stay-at-home mom. There's not much money coming from there. I needed to earn my way through college myself, more or less. So I had always had odd jobs from cashier to waiter to you name it. And then after a while, I started working at this technology company in Germany, where they're basically first testing computer programs that they were developing, because I knew nothing about computers, and then just learning from there how to engage it, and then like basically working my way up in there as a college worker, and then becoming part of a team over there and a part of a consulting team and things like that. So because of that kind of like half-baked experience, it was decent experience, but wasn't full-time. One company in the US out of the 30 or 40 that I applied to took a chance and gave me a job, because giving me a job wasn't just like giving anyone else a job. If you give some immigrant a job, you also have to commit to helping them through the sponsoring of the visa, because when you come here to college, you get an automatic work permit for 1 year, but after that it expires. So nobody would hire me for 1 year. So they knew if they hire me, they would have to help me go kick off that next process of getting that H-1B visa, and then ultimately perhaps the green card. So nobody was willing to do that except for one company, because they were hiring like crazy, and they saw I had already had some experience in that direction. So they hired me. The point though is I never wanted to get old in that industry. I hated that industry. I'm not a software guy. I'm not a technology guy. I'm a business guy that loves to hang out with my family. So the issue was that I got that job because that job promised to get me the green card, and it did. But at the same time, I very quickly realized that this is taking me in a direction in life that I just don't want to go. It takes me in a direction in life that I didn't want. I saw those consultants. I was a consultant. Monday morning, I would jump on a plane, fly somewhere, spend all week in some ice cold computer lab place with no windows, stay the Holiday Inn Express around like on the thing in the suburbs somewhere, and then gain 15 pounds every month or something like that, or not really, but 5 pounds a month or so. And just around me were a bunch of people who had been doing this for 20 years. And I was like, and I looked at them and I was like, I will not age like this. Will not be, I didn't go to college for all that many years. I didn't go through all this effort to be in that role of just being away from my wife at that time. We had married just recently, we were engaged already. I'd be away from my girl, away from my family, be in some job that I don't like. And it was just pure pain that was piling up, that my life was not going the direction I wanted to go. I was in a place that I wanted to be in the United States. I was engaged with a girl that I love, and that is now, well, I said, now we're married 18 years, have a beautiful 12-year-old daughter. But everything else in life was not going the way I wanted to go. So pain got us to look around. It's like, this is not what we're going to do forever. And I was afraid that if I would be 6-7 years, because sometimes it takes 6-7 years. In my case, it took me 5.5 years to get that green card. So I had that job for 5.5 years. If you're 5.5 years in an industry, you're almost like branded with that industry, and it's really hard to go into another industry. And I was like, I can't do that. I don't want to be stuck in that industry for the rest of my professional life. And so we looked for something else, found real estate, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So then how did you find and come across real estate? Did you have a mentor, somebody that you knew that was involved with it, or how did that? I know
the truth? Infomercial.
That's awesome.
We watched an infomercial at night, and we didn't know anything. And I was like, anything about it. I didn't even know what the word deed meant. I didn't know what the word drywall meant. I didn't know what the word, but when people talk about 2x4s or 2x8s, and I didn't have a clue what those words meant. But I did see that they were showing that somebody can make $20,000 checks, and it's like, what is that? I was naive enough to actually believe it, naive enough to actually go and say, I wonder what this is all about, and start the studying process. And once I started, I got myself a book, right? Real Estate 101 or something like that. ABC of Real Estate, whatever it was called. I have the book somewhere here. It's like really fundamentals of real estate. And I started reading in a book, and I was like, oh my God, but this is like amazing that you can do those things. And they went to different kind of real estate methods, like wholesaling, like fix and flip and things like that. And it's like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I started learning about it, and I started getting excited about it. I never did anything with that infomercial, but I looked around and we dabbled with stuff, and we tried to get our house under contract and wholesale it, and we did, but we couldn't wholesale it because we estimated all repairs wrong. And we so we just moved around in the space from real estate from kind of technique to technique until we got in front of a few landowners, and the first one was willing to give us a perfectly fine piece of land, an acre in a subdivision, in a rural subdivision where it's probably only worth $10,000. He gave that to us for $400, and we sold it to the neighbor across the street for $4,000 the same day. And we're like, well, that's kind of cool, because if I flip land, I don't even have to know anything about roofs and foundations and walls and things like that. So we started doing that. And then after about 10, 15 deals, we put the blinders on, eliminated all the houses, and we just only went after land because it's the simpler way of real estate.
Yeah, love it. So before we get into that, though, because you talked about you guys were testing and trying all these different techniques.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will kind of get into, let's just say they start off with wholesaling, but then they just stay in that lane forever, or flipping, or what was it about those different deals? Was it something that maybe they weren't turning out the way that you thought, like the first deal of not estimating the repairs wrong, that tried the different techniques, or was there something deeper behind that?
That's exactly what happened. So the first first thing we learned was driving for dollars. Somewhere in a book, they talked about go drive around neighborhoods, look for boarded up houses with broken windows, and the weeds are yet tall and stuff. We were like, okay, so let's do that. So we drove around some C-class neighborhoods, and we found some houses like that. We found like 10 of them. So we sent them a letter, figured out who owns them, went on the county. It took half a day of vacation basically after my job, or sometimes from my job, I would come back Thursday nights with like 55 or 60 hours worked already. And I would have Friday either free. I would have to do office work, so I could sneak off and into the county and look for the owner's record. So we found the owner's record, sent them a letter, and one accepted our offer. But the problem was, it was a triplex with 3 kitchens, 3 bathrooms, 3 things like that. And we didn't know how to estimate repairs. So we estimated every single repair, in my opinion, completely wrong. We didn't know if it cost $1,000 or $10,000 to fix a bathroom. We didn't know if it cost, or $30,000, I don't know. At this low-end triplex, we figured it wouldn't cost more than 10, but now I know you can do a bathroom for $1,500, a really nice one, right? So back then, I didn't know that. So we didn't know that. So we didn't know how much it cost to repair a roof, a foundation, and electricity, and all stuff. And this place needed it all, as it turns out. So we got under contract for $45,000, and we wanted to wholesale it just for $5,000. And we got 28 people to look at it, and not a single one making an offer. And we wondered why. The answer today is because we had estimated everything wrong. We should have gotten that property for $5,000 and sold it for $10,000, and then perhaps somebody would have taken us up on the offer. But so that didn't work. The next thing we were told is like, well, if it's a good deal, you should buy it yourself and rehab it. Well, we didn't want to do that because we had no credit, we had no money, we had no experience, and I was traveling 100%. I couldn't supervise any crews or anything like that. Neither did we know how to even do that. We didn't have the confidence, the capability, the knowledge, the cash, none of that stuff. So we backed out of that. It was like, okay, so wholesaling is not our thing. Fix and flip is not our thing. Now, have we since wholesaled houses? Yes, we have wholesaled dozens of houses. We've wholesaled, we've rehabbed houses. We have almost 50 frankly rental properties, which we all bought pretty crappy conditions and rehabbed them. So it's all working, but back then we were not ready for it.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not dissing any kind of technique. It all works, but back then we weren't ready for it. And then the next thing is we looked at is tax liens and tax deeds. And we found it completely amazing that there's people who literally don't want their property anymore, to the degree that they stop paying property taxes and let it go to a tax lien foreclosure or to a tax deed sale. Completely blew our mind, because in both our home countries, Honduras and Germany, this is not done like that. The process is completely different. So we attended the tax lien auction. We bought some liens. And 3 weeks later, they're redeemed, they were paid off, and we made $3.72 in interest. We were like, okay, well, that's not the way either. Then we attended the tax deed auction with all our money, like $3,500. That's all our savings we had. And the minimum bid was $1,000. Well, they all ended up being bid up to $15,000 to $20,000. So again, we got nothing. So we're like failing forward, basically. Just like we're not giving up, but we're trying this, we're trying that, we're trying this, we're trying that. Nothing's working for us, even though all these techniques work. And then we had one thought one day, and that thought was like, what if these people, particularly the tax lien and tax deed people, if they don't want their properties anymore, and they're literally willing to let them go, but it takes 3 to 5 years before their property is even being taken away from them. Like if somebody right now, let's say in 2020, decides to stop paying property taxes, and in California, it's going to take until the year 2026 before their property even comes up for auction. We live in Arizona, so right next to California. If somebody stops paying property taxes in Arizona in 2020, it takes until the year 2024 until somebody can actually own that property to a tax lien foreclosure. It's like crazy. So it's like, but if they don't want their property now anymore, what if we just circumvent the entire system and go directly to them with a letter? And the moment we started doing that, things started happening. But the crazy thing was, we sent 400 letters, and we got like 30 responses. And those 30 or 40 responses, they were all landowners. So we're like, okay, well, what do we do with land now? Was the next question. It's like, well, if it's land, I mean, at least we don't have to estimate any repairs and stuff. Let's just go in really, really low, right? Let's just, if they don't want it anymore, if they're willing to walk away from that land, perhaps they take a $400 offer. Perhaps they take a $100 offer or a $1,000 offer, and that's what we did. The first deal we got for $400, as I mentioned, sold for $4,000. The next deal over was a property worth about $15,000 to $20,000. We bought it for $500, and we sold it to somebody for $10,000 with a $9,500 profit. And that's how we kind of stumbled into it. We just went from technique to technique, and the one that required the least amount of knowledge, because you don't have to know about rehabs and stuff. The one that requires the least amount of contact and doesn't require you to be physically there, because we did it all by sending mail, talking to them on the phone, sending them an offer by mail, them accepting the offer by scan mail by your email. So it's something I could do while traveling around the country in my job. That was the land flipping that we figured out. At first, we went only after tax delinquent people, but then we expanded it. Now we go after all the land that's usually worth below $100,000.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now you're 4,000 plus parcels that you've successfully done this with. Can you give us kind of a breakdown of what your process is with this?
Sure.
I'm sure you've had a lot of learning lessons along the way with this.
Yeah, and we teach it
4,000.
now too, so. We actually, for the last 10, 11 years, we have been teaching this now too, because there's the beautiful thing about this process is that because everyone goes after houses, there's virtually no competition on the land space. Like, so as a result, you get response rates. They're like in the 4 to 15% range. You get, but the steps are very simple. We focus on properties that are worth usually between about $5,000 and $100,000. That's our box. Within that box, it's cookie cutter. You can literally build a business out of that. You send X letters, you get X responses, you make X offers, you get X deals accepted. You can count on this working almost like clockwork. All right, so with certain variations, of course. But this is our sweet spot, this $5,000 to $100,000. So what we do is we go get a list, either from the county or from a list service, of land in that price range. Then we go send those owners a letter. They respond to a letter, and we have developed letters that are split tested and fine-tuned so much that they get us the 4 to 15% response rate, which is like 10 times more than the house flippers get. And then we send them out, and then they call us back, and then we analyze the deal a little bit. But the nice part is we don't actually have to find out the exact value of the property. We only have to find out the ballpark of the property, because all our deals are done by buying properties within 5 and 25 cents on the dollar. So if you offer 15 cents on the dollar, it doesn't matter if you are off by 20% in the value. It doesn't. So it speeds up the process of the entire method. Right? We don't have to be absolutely 100% accurate. Is this worth $43,000 or $45,000? If it's in the $40,000 range, our offer is going to be like $7,000, period. Now, if it's worth $30,000, we still got to make money on the deal, right? So we then send them an offer, and some accept, many don't. But if you send out 50 offers, you'll get like a deal or two accepted. And then here's the thing: you said your audience is a lot of realtors. That we have some realtors that learn from us too, and I have a real estate license, but I don't put listings together. But some of our realtors, they send out a bunch of offers, they get some offers accepted. The other ones, they reach back out and say like, well, you weren't interested in selling. How about you list the property with us? Right? So it becomes a lead generator for both things, first for deals, but also then for listings. And then they'll make money either way. But then, so once you have the deals accepted, now we go out and we go sell them online, and basically everything is done from here. All these 4,000 deals have been done basically from our living room, and now we go and list them on websites like Zillow, on the MLS if you have access to, if you're doing this in your backyard too. But because it's land and you don't have to actually physically go out there, you have Google Earth, Google Maps, Google Street View. You can do this all around the country. So we're doing deals all the way from Hawaii to Florida, and we're sitting in Arizona, and we don't go look at these deals because we can do Street View, we can take pictures, we can put those listings up, and then we put them up on, as I said, on Zillow, on Craigslist, on the MLS if we have access to them, on Facebook Marketplace is a big outlet right now. And communicate with our buyers, and then go sell them. Use DocuSign and title companies to go sell the deals and do double closing, do assignments, do wholesale deals. And we figured out that if we sell a property, there's a lot of demand for people who can't afford to pay the property in cash. So you can sell it to them with seller financing. So you take the property that's worth $40,000, you put it under contract for $7,000. You sell it for $40,000, somebody gives you a 20% down payment, an $8,000 down payment. You now collected more as a down payment than you actually paid for the property, and $500 a month for the next 10 years. And you just created the $500 cash flow for 10 years without any tenants, toilets, and termites.
Yep, love it. So then, are there any? I know you mentioned the $5,000 to $100,000, price point is kind of like your ideal buy box for right. When it comes to the land. But are there any other things that you have found, or things that you found to maybe avoid, where the area is like there's no neighbors, rural area, or do you want it in a more established area? Or, I mean, are there any kind of like, hey, these are a few things to really watch out for when we've been in trouble?
Yeah,
with this type of land in this type of area?
Not necessarily by the type of land and type of area, but by the title work. So when you have something on a contract, that you need to do very little research to figure out what you're going to offer on it. But once you got it accepted, our contract has a provision that allows you to back out anytime for any reason. So, but the moment you have it on a contract, what you want to do is you want to go and do a deep dive in the research on the property. Is it buildable? Right? Is it on water, sewer, septic? If not, can you drill a well? Are there any protected animal species that live in the area that would prevent you from being able to build, right? Where's electricity? If it's on a property, how far is it from the property, et cetera, things like that, so that you make sure that you actually are taking on a good property. Because are there bad properties? Of course there are bad properties. There's garbage properties out there. But the better way to answer your question, I think, is that by the way we eliminate a lot of what you ask for is by our focus of what properties we do focus. So we have identified that there's 3 kinds of properties that we like to focus on. Right? Property number 1 is infill lots. Infill lots in a growing city are just a slam dunk deal, right? I mean, they're a little harder to get. You have to send out more letters. But we just earlier this year, we got an infill lot for $5,000. That we sold for $64,000 with a $6,500 down payment and monthly payments of $463 for 20 years. So principal and interest is $462 plus there's property taxes and escrow and loan servicing fees. So the total payment is like $550 or so. But we're getting $462 a month on that deal for the next 20 years. That's an infill lot. We literally took us a week. Within a week, that thing was sold. We put it on there. Immediately, people look for it because it was in a growing area and a growing city. So builders buy those very, very quickly. Plus, it was zoned multifamily, so they can put a fourplex on there. Amazing. The second kind of property we focus on is what we call the path of growth. So you imagine a city. Again, the best cities to do this in is growing cities. So it's a city. It doesn't matter if it says 200,000 people or 10 million people. But the thing is, as soon as it's a certain size of, like, it's say 100,000, couple 100,000 people, and if it's growing, the moment you can go outside of that city and you right outside the city in the path of growth, and there's a lot of demand for properties out there. And the demand is from two kinds of buyers. The number one is the financial buyer, right? They're speculating on the value increase over time. So they buy this property 3 miles outside of town, and the city's growing by half a mile a year, right? Million people city, one development after the other is being built, and they're building on the outside. So the city's growing and growing, growing. Well, within a matter of 10, 15 years, that lot, let's say it's a 5-acre lot that we put under contract for $10,000, we sold it to them for $50,000. That lot's going to be worth $500,000 because now there's full developments around there. Perhaps it's commercial stuff around there. It's a slam dunk deal. And a lot of people have made a ton of money by doing that. Often people with more money, they just park their money there and let it appreciate. The second kind of person that buys in the outskirts of town is what we call future retiree. There's a lot of people in the United States that are in their 50s right now that don't have enough savings. And they don't have enough savings, and they're starting to realize that if they're continuing their path that they're right now, by the time they're 65, they either have to keep working or they have to sell their house because they need the equity in the house to help pay for their retirement. So they either have a choice of moving into a rental apartment, or they buy a lot from us 5 miles, 10 miles outside of town. So they're still within 10, 15 minutes. They're in the city. They're at the grocery stores. They're at the doctor's appointment. They're at the movies. They're at the restaurants. They're at the ball game. But they are they can pay it off now, perhaps in installments over the next 10 years, and then they can put a mobile home on there, and they can have a retirement that is free and clear, and actually live with a dignified retirement and live on their Social Security and their savings from the house when they sell it at that point, right? So those are the path of growth properties, and because you have those two buyers built in, those properties sell also very quickly. The third kind of property is a rural area. So we love rural areas, but it's larger acreage in rural areas. So we're staying away from the quarter acre, half an acre, 1 acre, 2 acre lots, and we're looking for 5, usually even 10 acres and more in the rural areas. And that is attractive to the billions and billions of dollars worth of industry of the RVs, the outdoors people. Like the people have, like, I just talked to a guy that has one of the flip and flop shows, is a friend of mine, and I told him, like, what we do here, and he's like, yeah, dude, that makes total sense. I own 120 acres outside of Atlanta, where I take my RV out there, take my friends out there. We go dirt bike, and we go boogie around, and we do the bonfires and the s'mores and the shooting and the bow and arrow shooting, and we just have a blast, and then we come back to the city for the normal drag of the week, right? So there's millions of people that are into that, and billions of dollars are being spent on that. And that's the market we focus on. So with that, what you want to stay away from is like really ugly areas that are in the middle of nowhere. So I was taking as example, there's this county called Elko County, Nevada. There's nothing going on in Elko County, Nevada. There's nothing attractive close by, but the Smoky Mountains are only 45 minutes north of Atlanta. So the Atlanta people love going to the Smoky Mountains and spend their weekend there. The people in Arizona love going to northern Arizona because there's pine trees and lakes, and it's only 80 degrees in summer when it's in Phoenix 110, right? The people somewhere in Missouri like to go to lakes and things like that. So if you're going to the rural area, make sure it's somewhere there's attractive lakes, hiking, fun, hunting, things around, and then you sell those properties very quickly too, because you got all those millions of recreational people or recreational buyers out there.
Yep, love it. Powerful stuff. So, I'm curious because you've been doing this since before the last market crash, the 2008, 2009. Yep. And with us both being here in Arizona, I got my real estate license here in Arizona in 2005 and was active before the crash and then after the crash. And, we would sell, let's just say, a 1 acre parcel, let's just say in Surprise, Arizona, for $150,000. This was before the crash, right? And then afterwards, I got in heavily with a lot of the banks and selling their REO properties. And M&I Bank was a huge land financer out here. And I'm listing some of these parcels that sold for $150,000 2 years ago, and then now they're unloading them for $5,000, $10,000. Yeah. Was there anything that you did to kind of protect yourself? And hopefully we don't experience that extreme again. But even if you're buying at 25 cents on the dollar, if that extreme kind of a crash happens, like, are there any things that you kind of do to protect yourself? Because I'm sure that you had a lot of deals going on at that time.
Yes, we did. So first thing, when the market crashed, we canceled a bunch of deals because over time we had been buying higher and higher. So we started to go into the 25, 30 cents on the market. And then when the prices started giving in, we realized that at that level, we couldn't make our margins that we wanted. So we canceled a bunch of deals. But then within a few months, as the market kept going down, the sellers started realizing that they're not getting the same prices again anymore. So they were willing to sell at 5 cents again, and we would sell at 25 or 30 cents again. So we would still make money. So this business kept working on the way down, just that the margins were getting compressed. Right? So instead of buying at 25 cents and selling at 70 cents, you would buy now at 10 cents and sell at 30 cents. Right, of the prior values. But so you make money, but instead of making 30 grand, you now make 10 grand on a deal. Right, so that still worked. The other thing that worked is that one thing that protected us from losing money really was that our goal was never hold on to this property. We literally, the moment we only bought them when we had the buyer lined up already. Yeah. So basically, when we and still our students do this today right now too, when you put on a property in a contract, these sellers, they're so disengaged from these properties because in many cases they have inherited them, they've had them in the family for 40, 50 years, they're sick and tired of paying property taxes, they just don't want to have this thing anymore. So you give them a contract that has a close of escrow date of 6 months from now, they don't care, they sign it. So you don't have to close. It's the opposite of the house flipping. You don't have to say, I buy in 7 days. You just want to say, I buy it because nobody else is kind of in that market. They're like, yeah, I'm happy to sell to you. So we're having them with a close of escrow date of 6 months later. So we don't buy them right away. We go market them while we have them on a contract. And then once we have a buyer, then we go buy and then we sell, or we don't, or we do a double closing or we do an assignment. So if you do that, you're really protected from the downside of the market, because if it takes half a year to sell a property and the market is in decline rapidly, and then the worst case scenario is that you really don't sell that deal, you cancel a contract, and or you go to the seller and say like, you know what, guys, in the last half a year, the value has really gone down. I need to get this deal now at a cheaper, and then now cheaper, and you renegotiate. But you never really have your own money on the line. So as a result, there's very limited exposure. Now, what did happen was that at that time, we had hundreds of land loans because we're doing the seller financing, right? We're basically allowing people to pay a down payment and do monthly payments. So we built that up to over $70,000 a month in cash flow coming to our bank account every single month. Well, when the market crashed, we did have about 20% of our loans where the people stopped paying. So what we did to have, but even there, here's the thing. That was kind of we're like, oh man, what's happening here? We don't like that. So what we did is we went back to those people and asked them one question. We asked them, hey, Mr. Seller, Mr. Buyer, is it that you don't want the property anymore? Or is it that you can't afford it anymore? And mostly the answer was, we can't afford it anymore. So what we said, okay, great. So if you can't afford it anymore, well, your $500 a month payment, what can you afford? And they're like, well, I can't afford a $250 a month payment. I was okay, great. So we did the loan modification. It's like, the fun thing is like when you give these loans, you are the bank. Right? You become the bank. So we did loan mods, and we perhaps did slash some of the balance down. So perhaps if they've had the property bought for $50,000 and today it was only worth 15, and they still owed us $40,000, we gave them a $10,000 discount on the note, basically. So like, we'll slash down what you owe us to $30,000, then we'll stretch out the loan, reduce the interest rate, and we'll make your $500 payment now to be $250. Would that work? And they're like, oh my God, that's so wonderful. Yes, let's do that. And their payments started paying again. Now, of course, lower payments, but over more time and over the length of the loan, we actually started at, and they ended up actually making the same or even more money, because interest now over many more years started coming in, and the collective amount that were received was the same or more. So that's how we reacted to it. Number one, you don't have to buy them. You can just put them on contract, and if the market goes against you, just cancel the contract or renegotiate. Number two, we do a lot of assignments and double closings, so you actually don't need any money in the deal anyway. And number three, if something like that happens, we just renegotiated or did a loan modification. And with all these three things, we survived this entire downturn almost unharmed.
Yeah, that's pretty brilliant. I mean, because if you think about it too, you already got with their down payment, you already got paid back the cash you had into it. Exactly. Right? So everything that you've already been making, probably you don't have expenses on it. So even with the negotiations, you're still winning, right?
Yeah. I mean, that $50,000 deal, let's say somebody bought it for $50,000. They gave us a $10,000 down payment. We probably only paid $8,000 for the property. So we're already in the profit. So now they make payments for 2 years and the market crashes. Now they owe us $35,000. Well, $35,000, do I either have $35,000 profits go away and then have to resell it for 15 or 25? Or do I keep it and just reduce it a little bit, adjust it, and still make much more? It made much sense to do the loan mod, but we're all along, we're only playing with profit.
Yeah. Yeah. And then worst case, if they don't want to keep paying, you're still going to resell it again for more than you bought it for. And it's just.
Exactly. Then you foreclose on it. And again, depending on what document you use, in our program, we use like a land contract, which in several states, you can foreclose faster and cheaper. Or our students now, which also we have in our program, we use a lease purchase agreement with rent credit. So instead of actually selling it, we're leasing a lot of properties, or students leasing a lot of properties. And for every payment, they give them a credit towards the purchase price. If they stop paying, they just violated their lease. You now have to evict them from a piece of land that they're not even living on. So it's basically send them a notice of abandonment and you're done. And then you go resell it again. So there's, but you're only playing with a profit. And worst case, you sell it then for $20,000 again. But the $20,000 is again complete profit. So yeah, it's really not a big deal.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like with this process that it's very delegatable, right? Yes. Like the offers can be delegated out, the research can be delegated out, obviously the payment collections, I mean, is that statement true, or is it something that you're still having to be very involved in personally?
No, it's absolutely true. I mean, we have a team in our office that does it all for us. I don't really do anything other than approve a sale price. And the only other thing we do is we still determine what to offer for these properties. But we got a spreadsheet, or actually an export from our software. We developed a software, a CRM software, a deal management software for land flipping. And we get an extract from that, or actually we just log in and say like, okay, we look at all the details. So we said, okay, this one's going to offer, we offer this. And we make the offers, but then everything else is outsourced. So the call, like the letter writing can be sent to a mailing house for cheaper than we can do it at home. Or you can do it at home. The calls coming in can be taken by a call center. We work with a call center that a lot of our students are using, and they know exactly what to do. They do this on a daily basis. The research can be outsourced to virtual assistants. Right? We have virtual assistants. We work with a virtual assistant company that can provide them. They're trained and so on, that they can provide those, and they can do the research. Generating the listings, making the offer is still the thing that we do ourselves. But then once they're accepted, even generating the listings can be done by virtual assistants. And then the only last part is you can hire a salesperson for it, or again, your audience is real estate agents. They're already used to selling. They can put those things in place. And particularly on the selling side, I think there's an important piece that we do different than most realtors, because most realtors don't know how to market a piece of land. They're used to the house flipping area. So perhaps we can talk about that a little bit. It might be of good value to talk a little bit about that. But bottom line is almost all these pieces can be completely outsourced and automated with software, with outside services at a very, very low cost.
Yep, love it. Yeah, and then let's jump into that, because I know that's, especially now that you made that statement, I know it perked up a lot of ears as well as mine, but the differences between marketing land versus, let's just say, a traditional home.
Right. So I want to be, since we have realtors listening, I want to be very respectful of the realtors. But the thing is, my experience is that most realtors just don't know how to list a piece of land in a way that it'll sell. So what the typical issue is when a realtor, and I'm a realtor, I have a real estate license too. I don't use it. I only use it when I buy something expensive. I save myself some commission. Right. So for myself, I represent myself, and that's good. But most realtors are used to the houses. So how do you list a house? You get a good photographer in, you stage it perhaps, you put nice pictures out there, you write a nice description, and then you do open houses and people all use the MLS. It's a well-oiled system. Well, on land, it's different, because on land, even if you hire the best photographer in the world, is still not going to make a piece of dirt look much better than it is. It's still a piece of dirt. So what you need to do to sell land, which is really what sets us apart from our competition, that sets us apart, what allows us, we have lots of deals, and our students have lots of deals that they literally buy. We're doing direct mail. We do not know if a property is listed or not. One of the questions we ask when the seller calls us is your property listed with a realtor? And if the answer is yes, we ask for the contact information, we call the realtor. So we'll never circumvent the realtor. I just want to make sure. But the thing is, we then work with a realtor and get the offer to the realtor. But we have had cases when we send out the letter, we get a list from the county. We don't know if it's listed or not. Send a letter to the owner. The owner calls us. It's like, yeah, my listing just expired 4 weeks ago. I had it listed for 9 months. I didn't get anything. I wanted 50 grand for it. Apparently, it's not worth anything. You can have it, or if you want it, you can have it. So we go offer that guy, let's say $10,000 for his property. He accepts it. We now put our listing together and we'll sell it for 60 grand in a matter of 2 weeks. Now, why is that? Here's why. Because when you sell land, you're not really selling land. What you're selling is the dream of what people want to do with the land. So you got to paint a picture instead of just putting up pictures. So when you paint the picture with pictures, with photos. So the first thing we like to do when we put up a listing is we like to make sure people understand that it's a bargain. If it is a bargain, that we want to make understand, because in the house world, everyone can go on Zillow and see what are other properties in the neighborhood have sold for, and if all the other properties in the neighborhood sold for $300,000 and this one is listed for $270,000, then everyone can see it's a bargain. You don't need to highlight that it's a bargain. But in the land area, with some properties being 4 acres and 2 acres and 5 acres and 1 acre, people have a little bit harder time establishing the value of a property. So they don't know automatically by seeing this property, this one is listed at $60,000, is that a good deal or not? Well, so the first thing we do is we put in the headline, if the neighboring properties if our value estimate came out that this property is worth 100, and we're buying it for 20, and we're selling it for 60, then we are going to right away put in property 40% below market value into headline. And then the very first picture is going to be a picture from Zillow or Trulia or Redfin or wherever it is, or the MLS, where we show similar properties being listed or have sold for $100,000. So we immediately make sure that the world knows that this is a bargain. Normal realtors just don't do that because they're used to not having to do that in the house world. Right? And then afterwards, we show some pictures, because people don't buy a piece of land because they love the dirt. They like the piece of land because what's around it, right? In a house, they already know the neighborhood. They already looked at it. But here, they don't. Particularly if it's in the outsides of town or if it's in a rural area, you got to tell them, is this good hunting? Is this good hiking? Where's the closest city? Are there restaurants? Where's the closest doctor? In a city, you don't have to tell them where the next medical hospital is, because there's going to be an urgent care somewhere close by. But if you're in the rural areas, you got to tell people, because what if they get hurt by dirt biking? They want to know that the next doctor is only 20 minutes away in the next little town. Right? So you got to tell them those things, and you got to build a listing that answers their questions. And their questions are, can I build what I want to build there? Is it buildable? Is electricity on there? It's all the hard facts. But then much more important is like, is it a deal? Can I do what I want to do with it? Which means, can I go put an RV on there? Can I go have fun there? Are there elk? Are there deer? Are there lakes? Can I go hiking? Can I go biking? How far is the city away? Is the city growing? How far am I from a grocery store, from a doctor's office, from the restaurants and things like that? So you put that kind of stuff in there, and you back it up with pictures of those things, Google Earth, Google Face, Street View, and you got a picture that now actually attracts the people and answers all the questions, and you sell your properties.
Yeah, love it. That's brilliant, man. So, I'm curious to, because you're having so much success with doing this, and life's good, but then at some point, and I'm sure due to demand of others reaching out about how you're having success with this, and it's just like most greats out there, at some point I think you feel compelled to share what you've done with others so they can succeed. But I'm really curious to what led to you starting the training program and mentoring others and showing them your systems, and some might see, oh, you're giving your secrets away, right? Like, what led to all of that?
But it's really a few things. Number one, we are part of the Real Estate Investor Association, the Phoenix ASREA, Arizona Real Estate Investor Association. I go there not very often, but 3-4 times a year. I go there to one of the meetings, check out what they're doing and so on. And back then, I attended the meetings, and that's where I was really aware, because we're family people, my wife and I. We love hanging out together 24/7. I know we're weird. Like, we love with our daughter, we hang out 24/7 if possible. And of course, she has to go to school, but I bring her to school. We often pick her up together from school, and we go have an ice cream and go for dinner and go have fun and so on. So I don't go constantly socialize and things like that. We live in a beautiful home. I'm happy to be here. And so when we figured out land flipping, we put blinders on and we just flip. I saw and I read in the newspaper that everything else was going crazy. But then I attended in 2008, the ASREA meeting again. And all of a sudden, everyone was losing money around us. Everyone was bleeding. Everyone was dying. Everyone was like losing their shirt. And we're like, what's going on? And I finally realized all these liar loans, all this kind of stuff that was going on, I hadn't even been part of that, because we just focused on land flipping, right? So I started realizing, it's like, man, our stuff keeps working. As I said, in the downturn, we just bought cheaper and sold cheaper, right? We smaller margins, but still, instead of making 30 grand, you make 10 grand. You do 10 deals a month like that, you still make 100 grand, right? Life is good. So we're like, oh my God, we need to share this, because we have a method here that, number one, nobody in the entire world knows. Number two, there's no competition because of that. So people are losing their shirt, yet they could just do this and save themselves, right? So number two, there's nobody in this world knows about this. So we can teach this. We came to a conclusion. We can teach this for another 10 years, 20 years, and there's still not going to be competition. We have been teaching this for 10 years now, or 11 years. There's still not much competition, almost nowhere in the country. Is there any level of significant or noticeable competition? So we can teach this another 10 years. So it's like, we're not giving away secrets and hurting ourselves by sharing this. We're helping others by sharing that, because there's plenty of deals for all of us. And then the third reason was that right around that time, we had accomplished some significant financial milestones for our life that basically allowed us to sit back and not do anything financial, not do anything for work for the rest of our lives anymore, if we wanted to. Now, of course, we continue land flipping. We continue land flipping to this day, and we've actually probably do more now than we ever did. But we realized that, like, what do we do now? And we were sitting around, and we were like, Or it's like drinking wine and drinking more wine and stuff. And it's like, well, I kind of like, it's something funny when you hit your financial goals, and actually it's a celebration, but then you actually fall into somewhat of a hole because your goal is reached. And if you don't have yet another more exciting goal, then what is there to do? Like, you're just sitting around and not doing it. Our business was well optimized, well humming, well running. It was like, what are we going to do with the rest of our lives? I was 37 years old by that time, and I conceivably have another 70 years to go, right? If I live a healthy life, and with the medical advances, I think I can live over 100 years. So it's like, what am I going to do in the next 70 years? Just sit around and drink margaritas? So these three things came together, and we also realized that the first phase of our business was all about us. It was all about, we need to make the money in order to be getting out of debt, getting out of this job, getting out of financial like tightness that we're in. We need to build that amount of money, that amount of things. But then once you reach a certain amount of money that all your conceivable needs are met, it's kind of something funny happens, and you turn around, and then it's not all about you anymore. It's all about leaving an impact at that point. And that's why you see, like, at the billionaire level, we're not there, but the billionaire level, that's when these billionaires, they're almost all usually at an older age or so, they're starting to look around, and it's like, well, what do I do now? And they start realizing that they created all this money and that they're giving it away. Now, we're not giving away our money, but we're giving away our knowledge, right? So we're sharing our knowledge. So we're still, of course, we're helping donation things. But my wife always asks me sometimes, why are we teaching this and we're putting so much effort into teaching? It's like, because we're changing lives. So we have created actually a mission statement, and that is that we want to create 1,000 millionaires out there with this method. So when we think that 1,000 millionaires is going to mean that we really create, like, let's say, another 5 or 10,000, 100,000 millionaires, or so, if that's a word, I don't know. But basically, we're going to impact thousands and thousands of people at a significant monetary impact in their life that will ultimately change not just their life, but their kids' life and their grandchildren's life and so on. And that groundswell, that kind of dent in the universe is something that we want to do. And yes, do we make a little money on the coaching too? Less than what people think, but yes. We make our more money still in our real estate investing, but we're doing well by doing good, right? So we're helping others in that process, and the success rates are just off the charts because it's a non-competition environment with a system that is much simpler than most house flipping techniques, and has a higher success rate, higher response rates. So we're getting success stories from our students almost every single day. We have somebody who's like, got my first deal done, got another deal done, and so on. So it's really fantastic. But it's those reasons, like, you start looking what else is there, and you start wanting to make an impact in the world.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. And it's, you got the proven system after you've doing this 4,000 times, like, you've got it down. So you're able to not, show the system, but there's other, let's just say it is house flipping. There's systems out there that work, but then you look at the financial investment side. Well, a lot of people don't have 200 grand liquid sitting just in the bank, or, and the risk that's associated with this. It's like somebody can get started with a few grand, right? And build their way up. So now you look at with real estate investing, all this saturation with apartments, and man, it's getting tougher and tougher, where this sounds like no competition, right? It just being so much opportunity and a much easier barrier to entry, if you will. So love it, man. So if those that are watching and listening want to check out your program and learn more about it, as well as, I know that you have your podcast where you're giving a ton of just great free information on this. You've got a best-selling book that you wrote, and I don't know if it's exactly on this, on this process as well. But for those watching and listening that they want to do that, check you out, learn more about all of this, start following you, like, where are all the best places to do that at?
Right. So I'm going to give you a couple of places. So my podcast is called the Forever Cash Life Real Estate Podcast. Now, why Forever Cash? Because at the end of the day, we're all about cash flow. And so we're flipping land for cash flow. But then we have also taken that lot of that cash and moved it now over into other asset classes that provide cash flow for life. So we look at our land flipping method as our cash machine. But then ultimately, it's all designed to create what we call cash flow forever or forever cash. So our podcast is called the Forever Cash Real Estate Podcast. And we talk about land flipping there and other methods and apartments and so on and stuff like that. So go check it out. The second thing is, in order to find out about our exact land flipping method, the best place to go is www.landprofitfun. Fun, F-U-N, like having fun, landprofitfun.com gets you over to that page. But then also, when I talk about these things, I often get like, if I talk to one-on-one with people, at some point of time, they're going to be like looking at me like kind of like this. And they're like, really, Jack? This sounds too good to be true. That sounds too easy to be true. So, and I understand it sounds like that. So what I would like to invite you to check out is, we have a Facebook group. It's a closed group, but it's free to join. You just got to answer a couple of questions to make sure that you comply with our kind of rules of no spam and no advertising and stuff like that. But then in that group, it's called the Land Profit Generator Real Estate Investing Group. Land Profit Generator Real Estate Investing Group. When you go there, apply to join it. That's the group where all of our successful students are hanging out, and our beginning students that are trying to figure it out, the people that just got in our course and are just on their path to their first deal. Somebody just posted that they got the course like mid or late October, and by the beginning of December, they made their first $6,500. Boom, right? Just following the steps little by little. So that group is like full of comments and of questions. It's one of the biggest and small, and not biggest in terms of number, but in terms of quality, some of the best groups on Facebook, because it's truly is our family. Like we look at our land flipping community as our family, as our tribe here that is helping each other succeed with this land flipping method. So go in there, just be a fly on the wall, because look at all the things that are being posted there and the people doing deals, and then head over to Land Profit Fund and go check out the program.
Awesome. Love it. And those that are watching and listening, wherever you're at, we'll make it super easy on you and have links below for all those websites, resources, Facebook group, all that. So just scroll below, click, and you'll be able to join the group, check out those websites, and rock and roll. And I know I end every podcast with this, you guys, but information without implementation is truly just the start of delusion. Information isn't power. It's taking that information, taking action on it, which gives you the power to create the life that you know you want and deserve. And Jack shared so many amazing pieces of advice with you guys today that have changed his life forever. Make sure that you take something that Jack shared with you and go out there and take immediate action on it so you can create the life that you know you want and deserve. And Jack, I know how busy you are, and I truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here. This has been a lot of fun, man.
Thank you very much for having me.
100%, my friend. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.